I'd just like to let people know that I actually have a website called Jambareeqi.com. It's where I post written reviews of movies and cartoons, all sorts of fun stuff, so feel free to go and check it out. Howdy folks, Jambareeqi here, and it's time to talk about the film that tried to explore the roots of Kermit the Frog. Kermit lives in the swamp and has two best friends, Croaker and Goggles. Kermit loves the swamp, but wishes he could see the wider world. One day, Blotch the bully chases Goggles into the road, and the two are taken by Wilson the pet store owner. Kermit and Croaker must venture off to rescue their friend. Luckily, they meet a dog called Pilgrim, who agrees to use her tracking skills to help Kermit and Croaker. Meanwhile, sadistic science teacher Dr. Craftsman and his assistant Mary are trying to collect frogs for an upcoming science lesson for kids. So Wilson agrees to give Blotch and Goggles to Craftsman. It turns out that Craftsman once tried to dissect a frog as a child for school, but the frog told him to stop. He told his classmates that his frog talked, but the frog refused to speak again, and Craftsman's classmates mocked him. Now, as an adult, Craftsman enjoys dissecting frogs more than any other lesson because he sees it as revenge for his childhood trauma. Kermit must not only save his friends from dissection, but also convince Craftsman to end this practice. Many folks have cited this film as being one of the low points for the Muppets brand. Heck, a few years ago, I myself put it at the #1 spot on my top 5 worst Muppet movies list. However, after watching this film for a second time, I've realised that it's nowhere near as bad as I remember. I think it's good for what it is. Yes, it has its faults, and I'm not going to tiptoe around them, but a lot of these flaws are made up for. As an origin story, you may be disappointed by what it has to offer. It depends on what you want from a Kermit prequel. On the one hand, we don't really get to know Kermit's family or home life, and we only hang out in the swamp at the movie start. Despite the title, this movie isn't really about Kermit's childhood in the swamp. On the other hand, the movie does a good job foreshadowing Kermit's future. Throughout the film, he wishes for bigger things, and ends up experiencing the wide world outside his small swamp, only for him to discover the magic of cinema, which sparks his dream to become a movie star.
Alright, Kerm, let's go. I want to do that. Hit each other with sticks? I've done that. It ain't great. No. I mean, I want to be in the movies.
A plot point that becomes Kermit's main goal in the Muppet movie. Heck, the black and white film he watches on screen rubs off on him so much that he ends up living out the role of a swashbuckling action hero in the finale. There's also quite a few affectionate nods and references to the Muppet Show throughout the film. Kermit meets a hostile pig that makes him ironically swear off meeting another pig again. There's a little cameo from a young Statler and Waldorf. Kermit bumps into a child Jim Henson in one scene, and the outtakes feature a pop-punk cover of Rainbow Connection.
Then. That's gonna hurt.
Say what you will about this film's quality, but it's hard to deny the sincere lengths the movie goes to pay homage to the franchise that inspired it. Now yes, this is a very cheap looking movie, and its production values are nowhere near on par with other Muppet features, but it's what we should expect from a television movie made by people who specialise in preschool TV entertainment. In a way, the low budget actually helps to simplify the visuals. There's no fancy spectacle, just the required props and sets, which creates a kind of minimalism that kids can easily follow and read. Sure, it's unimpressive to look at, and you can tell where corners have been cut, but the movie has everything it needs to tell a straightforward road trip tale for little kids. The micro-budget also explains why the filmmakers couldn't afford major celebrity cameos, which is a touchstone of most Muppets projects, and something that makes the Muppets. But come on, preschool kids aren't going to care about famous stars. Every actor in this film totally understands the movie's tone and audience. They all overact and chew the scenery, putting hammy theatricality into all of their dialogue.
You smell that, Mary?
Pond scum.
Sure, adults might find these performances annoying, maybe even embarrassing to watch, but it's the kind of acting that preschool kids love, because they enjoy seeing grown-ups being silly, and exaggerated performances make for bold and clear emotions.
There's nothing like a good dissection.
I know some folks might dislike this film because it takes Kermit out of the Muppets gang, an ensemble dynamic that's worked for every Muppets movie, and has been the heart of this franchise. I get it, I really do, but Kermit Swampiest is set before when the Muppets even met each other. Of course they're not going to be in this film. Yet none of Kermit's friends in this movie have the same memorable charisma as, say, Fozzie Bear, Miss Piggy, or Gonzo. However, each character has a distinct personality that sets them apart, and there's a bit more to them under the surface. Croaker is laid back and happy-go-lucky.
Light yet filling.
but also a little cheeky and cynical.
We gotta help Goggles.
Yeah, help Goggles, that's right. Even if it means that the humans kill us, and they cook us, and they eat us alive.
Goggles is very anxious, yet adapts to changes quite quickly after he calms down.
Being a pet is everything I always wanted in life. Safety, security, and generous health benefits.
Blotch is an aggressive bully who grows throughout the film, plus Pilgrim is an overexcitable and easily distracted dog, but is very helpful for the rescue mission.
Are you sure we're not lost?
Oh, no, we're not lost, fellas. This is it.
What? Oh.
I tell you, that red truck is as good as got.
These characters don't have the pizzazz or flair of Kermit's Muppet Show co-stars, but they're completely fine for this movie, and they're not totally flat.
Here you go.
Hey, Kermit, I'm a walk-in roadmap.
Now, this film may be a cute simple story about frog puppets for preschool kids, but it does touch on some surprisingly heavy topics. For example, it uses Blotch to explore the subject of bullying. Blotch is an angry young bullfrog who can't control his temper. Then, when Goggles uses his poison glands to save Blotch from a snake's constriction, Blotch realizes that he's not that tough outside the swamp, and that having friends is a good thing. He then actively becomes a much calmer bullfrog, even later showing that he's changed when he takes Goggles' place in the frog dissection.
What is he doing? Helping a friend.
A bully who bullies for no complicated reason isn't bad writing, and I like that Kermit Swampier's boils Blotch down to being a violent kid with anger issues, because sometimes bullies are simply just mean people with no friends. The film also tackles the controversial theme of live frog dissection, an old-fashioned education tool that's been criticised as cruel and unnecessary. Especially in a day and age where modern technology offers less barbaric learning methods, it's kind of wild seeing a movie for preschool kids that's willing to outright slam this practice. The movie doesn't tread lightly around the controversy, it straight out condemns this school tradition and asks audiences to sympathise with the frogs.
Let the frogs go! Let the frogs go! Let the frogs go!
I also like how each adult character in this film is somewhat complicit with the frog dissection controversy, not because they're bad people, but due to human weakness. It's what makes for interesting character writing. Mary is so devoted to learning from her mentor that she doesn't question his frog dissection obsession.
Mary,
Yes, sir. Oh, doctor, sir.
you don't want to be an assistant scientist forever, do you? You want to be a real scientist like me.
Yes. Ever since I saw The Wizard of Oz as a kid, I wanted to be a scientist.
And Wilson is supplying craftsmen with frogs while being ignorant of the science teacher's plans.
Ooh, it's the frog's turn to worry.
Oh, frogs don't worry. Good night, Wilson. Frogs are peaceable creatures. When I was youngin',
Good night, Wilson.
I pretended I was a frog. I never worried at all.
But luckily, both get to redeem themselves by the end. Mary stands up to her boss by protesting the dissections, and Wilson frees the frogs he supplied back into the wild. So what about the puppetry? Well, even though the movie has a television budget, the filmmakers do their best with the restrictions imposed on them. It helps that professional Muppeteers have been cast as all the Muppets, proving that cheap production values can't get in the way of puppeteering talent. The subtleties and timing you'd expect from S-tier puppetry is all here.
Actually, we were just bobbing for stink bars.
That's
bobbing,
bobbing.
for
We were
stink bars.
bobbing.
Would you believe we were studying ophthalmology?
No.
And each character is beaming with vivid cartoony personality.
That was a good one.
There's also an effort to experiment with the puppetry too. We get some pretty ambitious shots that you wouldn't expect to see in a film this cheap. However, I wouldn't say that these effects all pay off. They're a tad awkward. It's clear that the technology wasn't there yet for these kinds of cinematic tricks, which isn't the filmmaker's fault. To conclude, Kermit's Swampier's is actually a lot better than I remember. Considering the limitations that the director had to work with, I think it's an okay and cute film that's fine for small kids. I actually regret being so mean to it in my top 5 worst Muppets movies list. What did you think of Kermit's Swampier's? Let everyone know in the comments, and don't forget to click the like button. I've been Jambareeqi. Cheerio, folks.
George of the jungle, strong as he can be. Ah! Watch out for